Okay, now tell me the story about the illegal disposal of batteries.
Well, it wasn't batteries. It was boom.
Oh, boom. Okay.
It was boom.
Right.
When we left, I think it was Sleepy Bay. We'd done a 27-hour shift that day. We had to pull in almost a mile and a half or 2 miles of boom. And you couldn't drag any of it anywhere. You know, you couldn't just hook on and tow it. I mean, this stuff floated pretty good. And we loaded and loaded and loaded. Like I said, I personally had a 27-hour shift in that shift. And then I left it to one of my foremans to get the last little bit out. And I called it a day and went in. Well, they called me up the next morning and just threw a shitstorm. And there was still some boom left in that bay, and we were supposed to be demobed completely, and the Coast Guard were on their way. And it was a big, huge, fat jam, and it was all my fault, basically, is how they were looking at it. And so we had already, the whole task force was over at this other site. So I took a bow picker with another general foreman and an Exxon supervisor and a fisherman that was running the bow picker. There were 4 of us on that boat. And we went over there, and sure as hell, there was a bunch of boom still. It was all bundled up, but it was all still there. And it was just more than we knew what to do with. And so they said, we have to get rid of this shit right now. Don't care what we do. Somebody better come up with something right then and there. And so we had enough anchors that we strapped anchors to it. But see, that stuff floats.
Yeah.
And it was made to float.
Yeah.
So we had to take our knives and slice it all open.
Yeah.
And we just kept piling anchors and hooking anchors and hooking anchors and hooking anchors onto it until we ran out of anchors. But most of it sank to the bottom.
Yeah.
And we just kept filling up. But then, like I said, we still had a whole crap load of it left. So we were going to have to do something with it.
How much was there?
I don't know. I mean, we moved 90% of it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we got on board and stuff like that.
But,
you know,
I mean, originally, just give me an estimate of how much material there was that you dealt with.
That we dumped?
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm thinking, as if memory serves anyway, a dozen bundles.
A dozen.
And I don't know how far a bundle went anymore, but that was, I mean, it was hundreds of feet.
Okay. Each one.
No, each one was maybe, you know, in the sections that they came in and then you hooked them together was maybe 100 feet.
Okay.
You know, and there was a dozen or 15 bundles maybe left.
We're talking about 100 to 150 feet of boom.
More like 1,000.
Oh.
Yeah, about 1,000.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Of that. And so, but then we just ran out of anchors, and there was still boom to go. And so, at this point, the Exxon white hat, he knew he had to bail. He'd already, he was so far over the line, you know, kind of thing at this point. Shit, I knew I was over the line at this point. I knew I shouldn't have been thinking that crap. So, but anyway, then we stuck, so another boat came up and rescued him and the other general foreman. And they left me there to deal with the rest of it. And so I shackled the rest of the boom to the back of the bow picker that I was on, and we headed for the new task force. We just had to get there without getting seen by the Coast Guard. You know, that was all. Which didn't happen. A C-130 flew right over us, and we're right out there around the point, and we've got, I don't know, 3 strands of maybe 300 foot long, 300 foot long strung out behind us, and we're towing it. And they did a circle around, so we knew they saw us. So I'm thinking, okay, well, I'm going to jail. You know, at least I won't spend any money while I'm there. This last check will last me. And but anyway, I was at that point in charge of the boom crew. So, and we had a couple of these party boats. You know, these bass boats, you know, those platform kind of pontoon boats. Okay. You know, and I called Elida. And I said, look, don't ask me any questions. I'm in a big, huge, deep jam here. Of course, she owed me a big, fat favor anyway, or she'd have been back on the beach. But I told her, I said, load up that party boat with all the oil-absorbent boom you can get, what we called sausage boom. I said, get it loaded up with that. And I says, you start heading towards the old task force, or the old work site where the task force was. And I said, just steam away, baby, and get over there.
So she was a skipper.
No, she was a foreman.
Oh, okay.
she was a foreman, and she had a driver for that boat. And so they loaded it up, and they headed out. And because I knew the Coast Guard was within moments of swooping down on me.
So that was like an alibi, with her coming to rendezvous with you.
What we did was, I swooped into a cove, dumped that oily boom, and she started playing out a mile of that sausage boom, and I played like that's what I'd been towing from the other task force when the Coast Guard swooped down on us. It's like, and that was the only boom that was legal to tow around out there, was that oil absorbent boom. And so I didn't get caught for it. I dumped that stuff in the cove behind the ski lac, boomed that off, cooked in all that Elida had brought out to me, and I just started towing that around like I'd been doing it all day long.
So tell me the part about seeing Exxon or Vico, I guess it would be, crews hired by Vico, cleaning beaches that were not oiled.
Well, I almost have to take responsibility for that idea.
Okay, hold on just a second. I'll flip this tape. Go ahead. At one point there in the late summer, and it had to have been, mid-July, Big Bob had made just a screwy statement. And because they were talking about, this is going to take years to clean this up at the rate you guys are going. And he said, we're going to make a half mile of beach a day, which was insane. We weren't making 100 yards of clean beach a day at that point. And there was no way to make that up. I mean, there just was no way. If we'd had 10 times more people out there, we couldn't have made a half mile of beach a day. It was just, or a week, or whatever his timeline was. But yeah, it was just some astronomical thing for the press, but there was no way we were ever going to hit that. So what we started doing was, and we would boom off clean beaches next to oiled beaches. And we boomed off a hell of a lot of them. And then I would take a beach crew out, and in fact, Matt still lives down the road from me. We're still kind of close. He was my lead man for this, and I'd give him about 18 or 20 guys. And because and all they had to do on these clean beaches was march up and down them, make a crap load of tracks, and bag up everything. Driftwood, sticks, seaweed, because once it went in those oil containment bags, nobody ever looked at them. They would just went right straight to the incinerator. So there could have been anything in there. You could have stashed bodies in there, And so I just had them walk up and down the beach and just bag up anything that they found. Make a lot of tracks, make it look like somebody had run over the place, Anything, you mean driftwood, rocks?
Driftwood, rocks. We put a lot of rock. Had them put a lot of rocks in that. Lots of seaweed. Just and just make it look like there had been a crew there.
Yeah.
Lots of tracks. All that kind of stuff. Boomed off. Leave some rope around. I mean,
I'm sorry. What was their attitude when? I mean, was that surprising, or was that just kind of taken for granted that stuff like that would go on? When you gave that order to the crew to do that, were they surprised?
No, not by this point. No, not at all.
So the level of corruption.
Because we had already been through the Indian crews and the state slaves. That's what we called them.
Okay. Let's remember to go back to that, but finish telling me about the cleanup of non-dirty beaches, and then we'll go back to.
Well, yeah, we just started booming off beaches that had never been oiled, and we just made a big show. Put a lot of commotion out there, and made a lot of tracks, bagged up a lot of crap. Just made a big pile of bags.
Give me an estimate of how many dirty beaches you've cleaned up.
Well, we started making our quota.
Okay,
which was 10 times more than we were before, and the Coast Guard would come in and sign off on these beaches. And if they couldn't tell a beach that had been oiled and shot with the hoses by then they were pretty new still.
So you can't remember specifically what that quota was.
No, I think he said we were going to make a quarter mile or a half mile a day, a quarter mile a day is what I think he said. You know, and you know, it filtered down to us because then everybody, you know, just shipped bricks, and we're like, you know, how are we going to do this?
Right.
You know, and
so
and that was the only way, because there was no way that we were going to make.
So how long were you guys able to run that stand?
All the rest of the summer. The rest of the summer.
So that's a good 6 weeks.
Oh yeah.